161.
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. For 162, 2015, in payment number 1 for contract A, an amount of $147,112.97.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. For 163, 2015, it's payment number 1 for the Windsor Woods Phase 3 bond work in the amount of $20,306.25 to Stewart Contracting. Moved
Second.
and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. For 164, 2015, it's for the release of funds related to the installation of public improvements for Ridgewood Heights Section 5R from $750,558.77 to $629,699.40.
I can give a little explanation on this one. You probably all say.
Excuse me, Dan, would you please include with that what is Section 5R? Is that the one that Rick Bryan?
Yes, that's the one that the supervisors just approved.
Yep.
It's the remaining section. Now what happened is that, after the board approves the plan, Bruce works through a developer's agreement, and I help him on the cost side of things. We had established the cost for this project, the amount for bonding, and then the Bryans came back. They actually secured that letter of credit for the total amount of $750,000. But then they came back with legitimate bids from contractors, which were allowed to consider under the requirements for bonding of public improvements. So that reduction in cost is related to a difference between their actual bids and the cost that their engineer had estimated. So even though they've not done any work up there, what we're doing here is reestablishing the floor for the work to start. So the actual number for bonding is 629 number, and we're just doing that as a reduction tonight because they had already put forth the letter of credit or whatever form of security that they have, if that makes any sense.
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Listen, along those lines, I had asked maybe a year ago to be included in the meetings that took place from time to time. Bruce, I think you'll remember my request we had of you. And I understood after the fact that the meeting with the owners of Ridgewood Heights Section 5R had met with you a week ago. I would like very much to have been a part of that because our property adjoins them, and I don't know what's going on there. So can you please see the detail of your meetings and I can determine whether or not I want to attend?
Sure.
Thank you.
I did prepare minutes for that meeting, Elizabeth.
Well,
I hope you got those.
Yeah, that was the first I knew about it.
Okay.
I didn't know that the meeting was anticipated or took place.
We have number 165, 2015 is to consider a rezoning application of NVR for a change of zoning use from R1 low density residential to R2 medium density situated along McCall Road. There's two separate parcels which lies between McCall Road and Burnside Road.
I'll make a motion that we approve change from R1 to R2 medium density. I'll second that motion.
There's been a motion to approve and a second. Carol, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Cowden?
Yes.
Supervisor Schrader?
Yes.
Supervisor Fisher?
Yes.
Supervisor Cassiola?
No. The motion carries. Would you repeat the vote, please, Carol? For number 166, 2015, it's a conditional use application for the AT&T wireless communication facility on J. Berry Court in Southpointe. SD zoning. We just had a hearing earlier this evening at 6 o'clock, and that was the subject of that hearing. At this time, you can make a motion to approve it or disapprove.
I'll make the motion to approve the conditional use application. I'll second that motion.
I agree. I think that they answered all their questions at the hearing, Tom. I think.
All All right, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. In case you weren't here for that hearing, it's, they're putting their antennas on the side of the building in Southpointe. None of their antennas will be higher than the actual roof line of the building. It's located on that J. Berry Court. For number 167, 2015, it's to adopt an ordinance deleting and replacing Part 17 of the Unified Development Ordinance under floodplain management. And Dan, would you, I know there's a requirement on our part to update this to meet the new requirement. And ours apparently meets the model ordinance that was presented. Right now.
That is correct. Bruce has actually been involved much more with that than me, so I'll defer to Bruce.
Chris. Briefly, last year, for example, every municipality in Allegheny County had to revise their floodplain ordinance. And what they do is they give you a sample, more or less say, adopt this ordinance. We've tried to personalize them in some cases, and they send them back saying, no, adopt the model ordinance. So in this case, Dawn and Bruce met with a consultant provided by the state of Pennsylvania and went through the ordinance and drafted the least restrictive floodplain ordinance possible that meets all the federal requirements. And I looked it over and confirmed that it meets all those requirements. This will be a standalone ordinance. That's the way most municipalities are doing it now. So,
again, it's replacing in its entirety Part 17 that the Township had for years to meet that requirement.
right. It is repealing it, but it'll be moving forward. It'll be a freestanding ordinance and not part of the zoning code.
Any questions for Chris or Bruce? We have a motion to that effect. Motion and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. For 168, 2015, it's we need to set our trick-or-treat date for Halloween this year. The proposal is for Saturday, October 31st, from 6 p.m. till 7:30 p.m. It's traditionally been on Halloween night, and this follows that tradition. Is there a motion to that effect? It's been moved and seconded. Those in
Question, is this the door-to-door, or is this Parks and Rec?
No, this is just the door-to-door.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. For this 169, 2015, the Montour Trail Association is working on a grant through the casino money, the LSA Grant, for the Southpointe Connector trail portions.
I'll discuss a little bit of this right now. What has been going on since Frank Ludwin died last year? We renamed that section that we wanted to do. We wanted to do this connector trail. Well, we were contacted by the Southpointe Chamber of Commerce, the Montour Trail, and Friends of the Cecil Trail. They wanted to get together and try to raise the money to go ahead and complete the whole project from the Montour Trail to the sidewalks of Southpointe. So Dan with Gateway has been gracious enough. He donated their time and energy and money really to go ahead and design all three sections of it. The first section of it comes up through the park from the Montour Trail up to Klinger Park into the cul-de-sac at the reserve. The second section goes right along Reserve Drive all the way down to Klinger Road. And then from Klinger Road, it goes to the left there and you go up to Corporate Drive. Those are the three phases. Dan has given us some cost estimates on what it would cost to do this. And the group that wants to do this fundraising, it decided that they wanted to apply for a local share grant. So the thing is, the grants have to be done by October 1st. They're willing to do all the grant writing for us. We just have to sign one as the township. So the other part of it is too, you end up having to go in January or February of next year and explain why you feel you want the grant and the whole project and everything. And they're ready to go ahead and start raising money and soliciting companies. We were out at the Southpointe Chamber of Commerce Trade Show, and Dale Risker, who's the president of the Southpointe Chamber, was bringing people and companies over to talk to us. So what we want to do is just go ahead and apply for the grant, but in the meantime, they're going to start raising money, And as they raise the money and they come up with enough to do a section of the trail, they'd like us to build it. And the township has already said a couple months ago that we were behind this project. So what we're looking for is just to go ahead and sign on to this grant, let them do the writing of it, and we'll be on board with it, basically.
Them being the Friends of the Montour Trail. They're gonna write the grant. And some of the people who've already signed on are Senator Bortolotta, Tim Murphy's office, Tim Murphy, the county commissioners.
I have a question. This grant, who's applying for the grant?
The Friends of the Montour Trail
Our rating
are
it, it
writing
will actually be
it.
the township.
It has to go through the township.
It's township property.
Well, then this is going to preclude our right to apply for other grants.
I mean, at this point, the deadline is October 1st. Is there another grant that we would like?
Yes.
Well, you can sign on and do several grants.
Well,
What's the other grant?
the other grant is water for Pullman Road. I don't have a problem with it as long as Cecil Township can support it, but not in our name.
It has to be in our name. We own the property.
And they do,
And the ability for us to get a grant for the water for Pullman Road has to be in our name as well.
Exactly.
right, for the LSA, it has to be in the township name, but they do allocate money for recreation, for infrastructure and things like that. So applying, one doesn't limit you.
It'd be different if we were applying for two
Several water grants.
two different water grants or two different trail grants.
All right, then I have no problem with what you're all saying is correct.
The other thing too is that we have the seed money of, we were given $20,000 in a grant 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, that it still was the seed money for that grant, and it kind of helps to supposedly draw other money into that account. Are there any other questions or comments? How about a motion? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
And I'd say I will approve it based on what I've been told here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Now for one